This might be one of the more disappointing collection updates, but we do have some things to look at and talk about, I guess. Yeah, so let's talk about this, right? Because the last time we did one of these was back in October, so like 5 months ago, and you can already see like what's going on. Three measly packages, then a bunch of loose games. Have I come to my senses and stopped spending so much money on video games? No, of course not. You think I'm better than that? I'm not. But it's a matter of like, yes, I guess, buying games differently. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Still has a very firm grip on me, and I am kind of letting it get tighter, and I'm just not, like, if anything, I'm getting a little bit jazzed up about it, right? So Yu-Gi-Oh! Still, buying a lot of stuff there. I do have some cards to show you. But I guess what we can just acknowledge, right, the loose game situation. Because the last update, right, I showed you that I was at Retro Game Con, picked up a bunch of games there, and like the conversation I think I mentioned was like, hey, these are going to show up in videos. And those were a bunch of PS2 launch games. Then that video came out in December around that time with me and Terrell playing the PS2 title. So it's the same scenario where if I can find these games out in the wild, I tend to, if I can, I don't want to buy them straight off eBay because at that point taxes and shipping add up so much for what is a $10, $15 game that it gets up to 15 or 20. So, lately I've been just going to Retro Rehome. That's Rob's store. He's like an hour and a half away from me, and it's just a lot easier to grab a bunch of games. So like the big thing I can mention right now is like PS3 stuff. There's something I'm working on, so I need a bunch of these things that I wouldn't normally buy. And so I picked up, like, honestly, so many titles that I was going to pull them out and show you, but I don't remember. There's like maybe 20 or 30 games in there that I just recently added to the library, which now I have to apologize too, because if you remember when I did the PS3 like full collection, 2 hour long, ridiculous conversation, basically a goddamn podcast showing you every single game on a title by title basis, I said like, oh, I could do this video in like 5 years and I'm pretty happy, and like the library wouldn't be all that different. I lied to you. I lied to your face. There's like 50 more PS3 games already in the library, but they're showing up in like other projects that I haven't done just yet. Having said that, I do have like loose pickups that I remember and some new pickups as well. So needed the Buzz games. So you're wondering, why do I have these? Buzz, these are the two PS3 entries. I have been missing these for a long time. Still got to go pick up the buzzers for these, but I do have something planned that I'd like to do for these at some point. They're nice, minty copies, and I can't even imagine it was a lot of money because, that's always the benefit of going to a retro store or having somebody and they're willing to work with you on straight up market price, and you're paying cash, and therefore you walk away way under eBay usually. Same deal with like Mad Maestro. I needed this for PS2 save files, so usually how those videos work is I secure the memory cards, load them up, I record that portion where I'm exploring the memory cards, and then based on what files I see, that will then determine what games I can boot up from my own library, and then any extra titles I want to go grab out in the wild or something. Mad Maestro was a really cool file. It's like, how often are we really going to see those? You're always going to see your GTAs, your Gran Turismo, Final Fantasy, things like that. The one Mad Maestro or like Leisure Suit Larry, I should have pulled that out. So I already forgot all the games that I bought. So like Leisure Suit Larry was one of them. Mad Maestro one. I wanted to show you the Mad Maestro though, because my God, look at this copy. It's new. It was a sealed copy. This thing is like crystal clean. I'll even show you this minty CD. I mean, goddamn, does that just not make you feel a little bit better about yourself? It does for me. So Mad Maestro looked insane, and I would have loved to have a copy of this. That's the other thing too. By sheer association, I've been in this mood of like, well, obviously I still love collecting games and expanding the library, but if I don't have to go out of my way to do that when now I'm just running into so many circumstances where I'll have an excuse to go get it when it's an upload that I'm planning on doing. So here's another example. The PS1 memory card video we just did about 3 weeks ago, I want to say. So a Spider-Man save file was on there. I gotta clean this dual case. It's absolutely gross and disgusting and making me very uncomfortable. But Spider-Man PS1. What's funny about this game? I always hear from people that they're like, oh man, I loved the Spider-Man game. And I don't know, I guess I was always of the opinion of like, aren't they all bad? Like they were never good until Insomniac made the 2018 one and then Spider-Man 2. But it might be one of those things where you're young and you just have a sort of fond appreciation and reverence for the game, and that might cloud your judgment a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting there playing it, and I'm like, yeah, this is fun and goofy, but at the same time, I'm like, this is just some janky PS1 nonsense. Either way, I hope I didn't hurt somebody's feelings there. Heart of Darkness, another one. I saw this save file. I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Heart of Darkness. This is one of those games where like here's the thing. Never owned it. There's a lot of PS1 games I never owned because I was super young at the time. But this game I remember vividly because I had a friend who had this game, and it's like one of those core memories where there's so many like weird things that live rent free in your head, and you remember it so much better than like maybe other aspects of your childhood when you were like, let's say before 10 years old or something. I distinctly remember him playing this game, and I was over his house. I was in his bedroom, sitting on his bed, watching him play the game, and I just remember the gameplay of this little kid walking around with like a plasma gun or something. And for the longest time after that, I never knew what the hell the game was called. Up until years later when I figured it out, but I never had my own copy. Seeing that save file, I'm like, this is great. Now I have an excuse to go and buy this game. So this was like $35, I want to say. Very misleading too, because eBay's just getting super, not insidious, but like you got to be careful, man. Like you'll look up this game, for example, and the first page is $80 listings. They're all $80. You go to completed sold listings, and you can see the fair market value is like $30. That's why you always do your price charting, due diligence, Jesus, and things like that. And also, this case looks very clean. It's aftermarket. So it was replaced. I don't like that for PS1 because while it does look really clean with like these jewel cases, because it does look brand spanking new, they're different. Especially with these double-sided ones, they don't want to close. You have to like sort of finagle them. They just don't close like genuine OEM original 1990 jewel cases that Sony shipped PS1 games with. Anyway, we got one new Switch game, Early Days Collection. Of course, I mean, I was pretty excited. The thing that irritates me is just that, like, why did we not get a PlayStation release? Because I obviously, I want the trophies. I get it, they're Game Boy Advance games or Game Boy Color games, and they feel at home on, like, the Switch, for example. So, believe me, I would have totally bought that copy and the PlayStation one. I want the PlayStation one so I can get some trophies. And it's like Konami, you put both Castlevanias on there, the both collections on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Why are you not doing this for the Early Days collection? But I digress. Maybe they'll do that for the secondary version of this collection, which everyone's freaking out because it's like, oh, I want Forbidden Memories, I want Duelist of Roses. And I don't know, my little mini rant there is like, yeah, I'm sure people are nostalgic for those games, but I don't know. What irritates me about those games is that they're not Yu-Gi-Oh! There's so many Yu-Gi-Oh! Games where they're not Yu-Gi-Oh! That irritates the living shit out of me. Forbidden Memories, it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know. Is it just because people like to speedrun it and it's all RNG based? I don't know. It's not Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, legitimately. Rant over. We got to mention that they come with a promo, quarter century rare, Harpy's Feather Duster. What's funny is that there's like a printing error on the stamp, the 25th anniversary stamp. Somebody let me know. I've heard that you can like just rub that off, but from my understanding, it's like under the actual stamp, so it's like that from factory, so you can't actually fix that. I don't know. I like this art though. I like this art better, so I was happy to get this particular version. It is pretty much RNG, whether you get that art or the other one. So been playing that occasionally, not a whole lot. Before we talk about Sea of Stars, so the big Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing that I bought, I'm not spending a ton of money on Yu-Gi-Oh!, but like there are times where I like whale up on it just when I'm feeling it. Quarter Century Bonanza, bought a case of that. So had a lot of QCRs out of a whole case, obviously. The big hits there for me, or at least the ones that I thought were super cool, and I used the God Box protectors here, but this Movie Pack Dark Magician Girl QCR, look at that. Not to be a little bit overly weird about Dark Magician Girl, because I know everybody does that. Now, in all honesty, this is my favorite card art, and my favorite sort of OG, like, just, I love Blue Eyes Ultimate. I think the art is amazing. So I've got like so many different printings of this card, and look at this Blue Eyes Ultimate. God damn. I actually had bought a PSA 10 of the Japanese QCR, and then I was like, oh, English is getting a QCR in Bonanza, and I was like, oh god, gotta get a case. And actually I didn't pull it out of my case, so I had to buy this on TCG Player after the fact. But looks so good. Yeah, Bonanza, we had like a lot of pulls. It was just me and Terrell having fun, repping packs, and Ugh, the sheer dopamine rush was amazing. Which I guess that's a question I'll also ask, right? Because I've got a bunch of loose games I'm showing you. Sure, it's the typical collection update show and tell, but how much of that really plays into the packaging experience? Because that was always my sort of line of thinking going into this. It was a sort of spiritual successor of the mystery box opening, in that you don't know what I'm going to get. Well, you don't know what I'm going to open either if I buy the games for myself a la carte. But how much of that is really the packaging opening experience, or do you not mind when they're just loose like this? Because if they're loose like this, then I think we can probably go back to doing more of these, because I'm just not sure how often I'll be buying from eBay anymore. Having said that, some new pickups that the reason why these aren't in packages is because typically if the price is good, or if there's price matching available, or whatever the case is, I will just go pick these up locally. I'd rather go and pick them up and know that they're not going to be in transit, or not be in like minimal travel, basically. I don't want them loose in bubble mailers and Amazon. You know how they do this. You got this thing and the size of Texas for a bubble mailer, and it's just fumbling around. There's just, godforsaken chance it's going to get to me in one piece. But Sea of Stars, even though it's on PS Plus, that was a extra game. Yeah, not an instant game collection game, not the essential tier. Extra, but that doesn't... Obviously, I want the game physically. Sea of Stars, that speaks to me on so many levels, where it's, the pixel art, turn-based, and role-playing, so I got to get to that at some point. Indica, let me type out Indica. Indica, don't know a damn thing, so I can't tell you much about it. I just love the art, and I love what I've heard about it so far. And that's how your boy likes to do it. He likes to go in with very little information. So it's just one of those weird, bizarre things where you look at this and you go, what the hell's going on with this game? And I dive right in. Speaking about things that you might hear about often, Balatro. Have you been living under a rock? Even if you were, you'd still probably get the news that Balatro has been setting the world on fire right next to Astrobot. Got to represent on that. But yeah, Balatro is really interesting. This is like the lore drop I always give people on occasion. Oh, these are so cool too, how you get like little goofy cards that come with it. This is the lore drop I always give people. Like, one of the jobs I used to have was I used to be a table games dealer at a casino. And that's an environment for me where I never cared about gambling or the casino environment, none of that shit. So I learned my poker hands, I was getting paid to learn poker hands. I never learned poker hands as somebody that just enjoyed playing poker. I never knew poker, never knew how to get into poker hands. So in a weird way, now it's years later, Balatro's, and you don't need to be a poker person to like Balatro. That's the entire point, because it's a roguelite where it has all these different elements that sort of expand beyond the basis of poker hands. But for the longest time, I had no idea what were good hands, or I wasn't fast at reading a poker hand. So I'd be looking at a 5-card hand, and I wouldn't see a flush. That's just mentally, that's not where I was. So it's always something that I think about at times, where it's I was getting paid to do that stuff, and I was terrible at it. I wasn't even good at it. Still Wakes the Deep. Got to get to this at a certain point. Just a very interesting premise where you're on this oil rig and there's something chasing you. I don't really know what's going on. I think the platinum is pretty doable as well, so this may very well be a 30 platinums candidate at some point. And then System Shock, this the remaster, I guess full-blown remake. I mean, yeah, it looks incredible. A huge difference. Never got to the original, so therefore this would be a very new experience for me, but it's always one of those games where you hear time and time again that, BioShock has its roots in System Shock. And BioShock, to me, is one of the greatest video games ever made, to be honest. Ape Escape 3 and 2. These were a little bit late to the scene here, because I know these show up, or they have shown up in previous PS2 save file videos, but I never booted them up because I didn't have the copies at the time. So recently, Rob's store had 2 copies of these, and I was like, I better grab these now in case we do another PS2 memory card video and Ape Escape does show up. Then I can fire them up. Because also, it's there's just so many PS2 games I'm missing. Always funny to note, too, that Ubisoft published Ape Escape 2. I believe in just North America. Missing the manual for that one, but that's not really a huge bother for me. Ape Escape 3, looking pretty clean, looking pretty gorgeous, looking pretty monkey-like. Okay, the 3 packages we have. So this is why these are the only things I have packaged. All LRG. So it's the same concept as before, where it's these were paid for a very long time ago. They basically feel free to me at this point. But we'll start off with this one here. And some of these were grouped up, so like they took much longer than they really needed to. This is just a singular copy of Glover. One of the most ridiculous and kind of stupid PS1, N64 games. Glover's just like, I don't know, it's weird, right? We've got so many of these games that are, I've said before, it's like, I'm actually kind of surprised how many like ports we're getting of like just random IP and titles that you think would never like be available on modern platforms. So in a way, like a lot of this PS1 stuff, I'm like, wow, it's kind of cool that like it's actually in some way, shape, or form getting funding and getting disc prints, and I'm all for it, obviously, but that's part of the reason why I've always been of this mind where it's like with the, you know, backwards compatibility and PlayStation 3, at a certain point it's like, dude, a lot of that stuff actually is available on PS4, PS5 via remasters. There's still a lot that's missing, obviously, but good lord, you almost have to wonder, it's like, maybe it's more financially advantageous to just start porting the remainder of those titles, especially for some SIE properties. Okay, we got our Lollipop Chainsaw Repop. I guess this is not a good print, but, you know, you kind of secure the pre-order well before that information comes out. Beyond Good and Evil, 20th Anniversary. This is a game that I've only played like an hour or two originally on PS2. I never finished it, but same thing. It's like, oh, like I just mentioned, all these games coming back, getting modern versions, modern ports. I'll take a print on PS5. And then there it is, Tomba Special Edition. Good lord, I was waiting for this. So, yeah, I don't know when I'll be able to get the Tomba again, but that's a wonderful PS1 game, and it was just, that was like such a hyped thing when LRG announced that. I'm like, oh my god, that is just, that hits home for you. Everyone with their PS1 demo discs, and it's like a game too, like a lot of folks went out of their way to say like, oh, Tomba, I remember the demo, like no one had it. And so now it's great that people can go play it and buy it as adults. These are my Castlevania Dominus collection. So these are the two arts that I went with. I didn't go nearly as ham as I did with the GBA collection. So that one I did 4 arts in total, 2 on Switch, 2 on PS4. This time I just kept it, you know, I had some self-control, which is kind of insane to think about, but only went with 2 arts on that one. Good lord, I was complaining that I didn't have a lot to show, but I kind of do. It's, in a way, I'm like, oh man, this is actually way more than I thought I had picked up recently. But again, I'll stand by this point. Like PlayStation 3, I bought a ton. It was like just a lot of like little stuff though, which is like one project I'm working on needs like 50 something PS3 games, and like the majority of the titles like I wouldn't go out of my way to get. So sourcing games sometimes for videos, like that's just kind of what you run into. But yeah, it seems like I'm adding a lot of PS5 stuff to the library, so happy about that. Yeah, we're doing good. I've been making changes to the wall and everything on occasion. Ever since I moved over one column with the expansion of PS2 stuff, it looks a little bit different. And I'm starting to take out bigger objects, like just like big box collector's editions and controllers and things. And now it's starting to fill out with like an actual, just straight up only games, which I'm loving. But anyway, that's what I got going on. Let me know if you don't mind if they're in packages or not. I am inclined to say people are probably going to say, yeah, just keep doing it. But you never know. I mean, for me, sometimes the endorphin rush absolutely is like, but I don't know. You be the judge. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.